Like a lot of Penobscot Indians, I come from a basket-making family. For Wabanaki people, which is the collective name for all of our tribal nations here in Maine, including my tribe, the Penobscot Nation, as well as the Passamaquoddy, Maliseet, and Micmac tribes, basket making is an important tradition for a variety of reasons. It is a source of income for families, it connects us to traditional places and resources, and it is part of one of our creation stories. It is also the oldest documented arts tradition in New England, and it is at the risk of being destroyed. For our basket makers, brown ash trees are the primary source material for our tradition. In Maine, there are 3 species of ash tree: green, brown, and white. And collectively, they make up about 4% of our forest. Brown ash trees grow in much wetter areas compared to the other ash trees, and this is part of what makes it such a good basket-making material. After processing, it can be made supple again by wetting it. After removing the bark, processing is traditionally done with the butt of an axe head, pounding out and separating the different layers of tree rings, slowly working your way into the heart of the tree. After further processing and stripping, the material becomes so smooth and silk-like. It's what makes it such a phenomenal basket. In 2013, the invasive species called the emerald ash borer was found in the trees in New Hampshire. This has potentially devastating consequences. Once it is discovered here in Maine, most likely over the next couple of years, it will kill most of our ash trees over the course of a couple of decades. In particular, it will kill most of the trees we rely on for our basket-making tradition. First discovered in Detroit in 2002, the invasive emerald ash borer came from Asia in the 1980s or 90s on shipping pallets. It kills all species of ash tree, slowly girdling it underneath the bark through the growth of its larvae. This is what makes it so hard to detect. Additionally, the adult ash borer is less than an inch long and likes to hang out up at the top of trees, also making it very difficult to find. Human beings have also played a really important role in making it spread much more quickly than we first thought, transporting unwittingly firewood from one location to the next. You might see the signs, "Don't bring any firewood into Maine." Please don't. A lot of our problems in society are like the emerald ash borer. There's no clear or technical solution, and it requires us to bring many kinds of knowledge and many groups of people together to solve. In their 1973 seminal article, Theories on a General Dilemma of Planning, I know you all read it, by the way, Riddle and Weber talk about 2 classes or problems that we as society face: tame problems and wicked problems. Tame problems require know-how, technical expertise, will, but they are as they sound, able to be tamed through enough will and resources, like delivering water to remote locations in the aftermath of a hurricane. Wicked problems, on the other hand, are much more difficult to define and are often society's most difficult and urgent issues. They also force us to confront our social, cultural, and experiential differences because they require many points of view to solve. The emerald ash borer is a wicked problem. When I returned to Maine in 2009, I was intent on putting my fancy, privileged education to use by supporting our cultural traditions in whatever way I could through education and research. The thought of the emerald ash borer threatening our tradition scared me. So I reached out to a group of allies and friends and to figure out what could we do about this emerging threat. As a Native scholar committed to doing research that benefits Native people, I also knew that a thoughtful, culturally appropriate process would be required to address this wicked problem. It's a wicked problem. We quickly put together a diverse group of people, basket makers, tribal government folks, state and federal foresters, university researchers, to come together to address this problem. We also put at the forefront of our research project Wabanaki knowledge and diplomacy. Wabanaki diplomacy, which is rooted in our confederacy, the Wabanaki Confederacy, a historic and cross-cultural multinational alliance between the Penobscot, Passamaquoddy, Micmac, and Maliseet tribes, not only of Maine, but also of the maritime provinces of Canada. As reflected in our confederacy, Wabanaki diplomacy is a cross-cultural set of protocols on how to solve problems, how to work together, and we grew great inspiration from this. I noticed something as we were doing our work. Contemporary claims by Native people, and Wabanaki in particular, are similar in tone and issue to 18th and 19th century speeches and petitions that we issued so long ago. In the 18th century, we were intent on signing treaties that would prevent European incursion into our homelands. And by the 19th century, we were intent on maintaining our relationships to natural resources that were also guaranteed in treaties. One of our petitions from 1821 shows something special about Wabanaki diplomacy. In it, while we could make a claim to treat Indians and non-Indians differently, we actually say something more critical about who knows a resource and who could make a decision about planning for it, especially in a time of scarcity. In this petition, it states, in the time of our forefathers, the Penobscot River provided for us all that we needed to make a living. We ask that you make a law so that the white people and the Indians be permitted only to fish 2 days a week in the time of the salmon shad and alewife for a period of 5 years. If you do so, the fish will become plenty again. As part of our project, we are intent that different knowledge traditions could answer the fundamental questions. A good example of this is how we collectively decided to map the potential impacts of the emerald ash borer on all ash trees in Maine. While government regulators and university researchers had great maps and statistical models, our basket makers and resource gatherers were excellent at providing a level of detail that they lacked. They lived with the resource every day and could tell us potential impacts that we just didn't know about. For us, this bringing together of knowledge traditions formed the critical basis of our research project. As we progressed, we faced even more difficult and wicked problems. How would we respond when the emerald ash borer came onto tribal lands? How would we collectively all work together to find a way to combat this invasive species? As we looked around for answers to these questions, we found that other states had done almost nothing to incorporate Indigenous people into their planning and response. And we were intent on doing it differently. So we made sure to sign a series of multinational, multilateral agreements that would include basket makers into whatever response we came up with. It's interesting that I thought, first going into this project, that the university researchers and government regulators would resist my approach of being culturally appropriate or inclusive of other forms of knowledge. But it was just the opposite. They knew the fundamental issues were hard to solve, and they would often thank me in a way that was like, hey, we're finally in the right room at the right time with the right people solving the right kinds of issues. They were able to let go of their role as the only expert and really solve together with others who are very different than them a really urgent problem. I recognize that Wabanaki diplomacy, which I see as a tool, as a critical tool for solving wicked problems, cannot be used in every situation. I would hope that it's used, that we use these tools when we as Wabanaki people are impacted, or our neighbors, like all of you. Whether we use Wabanaki knowledge and diplomacy in addressing a wicked problem, the lesson is so powerful. Don't assume everyone is in the room when you're trying to solve a wicked problem. Make sure you try to understand the problem from a bunch of different perspectives. And commit yourself to a process that allows for different points of view, and really stick with it. You might just find the answers you need, if not the ones you're looking for. Thank you.